Greetings duelists and welcome to another video. Uh, Long story short, I having PC issues. It's being repaired at the moment. So for a while, we're going to be having unedited content here on the channel. I might have lack of content in general, depending on how things go. Uh, However, I did want to make this deck report because this is the first deck report post Legacy of Destruction, and I came up with something really interesting that I kind of just want to talk about a little bit. Uh, but yeah, I won't waste too much of your time. I am going to just like show the deck profile, and I'm going to be doing my analysis and thoughts on it. There might be another follow-up video talking about a specific tech card I am playing in this deck. Um, because this is a tech that I think people, at least people watching this channel, might be inspired to like play moving forward. And it was a really wild card that was in my main deck. Not a lot of people expected it. It really overperformed. But yeah, without further ado, let's begin. I am playing Centur-ION. That is my deck of choice. Those who have been on this channel already know that I've been playing this deck for a really good amount of time. Legacy of Destruction was one of the pigeonholes that made me want to play this deck. I already knew about the new support coming out once I was playing this, and I was very confident in my choice, despite other decks in the room that were just as good as this one. But yeah, um, triple Primera, triple Trudea, one Gargoyle, the three Lubellion, the two other Bestial main decks, and the three Druisworm. So, if you've seen past Centurion deck profiles, you already know that this has been my standard for a while now. Um, One new addition that we have is Gargoyle, and we have one new copy of Gargoyle in the deck. I will explain Gargoyle once I explain all the other cards. Or better yet, I'll explain it now. So what Gargoyle does for this deck is that it gives the deck an extra push to like combo extend into other synchros besides just the standard Centurion line. That does play into Nibiru. However, if you have a read that your opponent does not have a Nibiru, or you try to play around it with other means, which we'll see like with the rest of the main deck, you can just make a very oppressive board. You can make Cosmic Blazer plus Auxilia turn 1. You can make double Centurion Synchro turn 1. You can do Centurion Synchro alongside other layers of protection, which I will get to with my extra deck later. This being a Dark Dragon that's above level 5 makes it so you can tribute it for Rebellion. This also makes it so you can summon another really cool card in the extra deck. I will show it in a second, but it's right here. Because this can make itself level 4 if it's spawned from the spell and trap. Uh, a lot of games, what I ended up doing was I placed Gargoyle with Emblema or with Stand Up. I would move the Gargoyle, I would Synchro Summon, I'll grab the Gargoyle back to my hand, and then I just special summon the Gargoyle. And a lot of people ended up being confused saying, wait, can you just not activate, not summon for a rest of the turn? I was like, it's only if you do the hand effect, not if you spawn it from the spawn trap. So this is one of the only Centurion monsters in the entire archetype that can do that. That can just summon itself twice in the same turn, which is really strong. This also being level 8 is very important. But yeah, really good addition to the deck. The deck definitely changed with that addition. So while I was constructing the deck, I kinda was thinking about a lot of engines. If you saw like my last deck report, you know that I was brainstorming this deck, and I was looking for like potential options that I could do for playing into this strategy. On Tuesday, I played like this deck in post Legacy Destruction tournament. I played against a lot of different decks, and one matchup that was actually very surprisingly good for this deck, and I was very surprised while I was playing. It was the Tempai Dragon deck. Like, shout outs to Daniel Rodriguez. He topped the double case tourney this past weekend with the Tempai deck. On Tuesday, I was facing against him, and I almost won every single duel because I've noticed that the Centurion matchup is really bad for that deck. They need very specific board breaking cards in order to like beat you. Like they need stuff like droplets. They need stuff like other blowout cards. If they don't specifically have those, and you will see later on, I am playing this in my deck as well. Uh, the matchup is just really strong in your favor. They cannot beat Calamity if you end up summoning that on them. Uh, but as I was facing the Tempai matchup, I noticed like a specific play that that deck was doing, and I thought about an idea that was good for both that deck as well as this deck. Um, so if you're a Tempai player, this also applies to you, but this is mainly for Centurion. So I wanted another engine in this deck that helped me combo extend. It also helped me push through boards, but at the same time, I did not want to lose to Nibiru because I thought Nibiru was going to be a very popular. And my hunch was correct. I ended up playing against multiple players that were playing Nibiru in their strategy, and I actually played around it. But yeah, the engine that I'm talking about consists of three Noctovision Dragon, one Rocket Tracer, and one Rocket Recharger. I do have one extra card that I will save for last, but this is mainly the engine. So what does this engine do? With the in this particular deck, because of Centurion Gargoyle, you can special summon the Noctovision as an extender, and you can do it with the Bestials as well. Or you can also do it under the summon of um, Centurion Oxula. So for those who don't know, Noctovision Dragon can special summon itself if you summon a Dark Dragon. That's where the Gargoyle, Oxula, and the Bestials and the Rockets come in. The other thing about Noctovision Dragon is if you link someone with it, you draw one card. And the last thing about Noctovision Dragon is that if your opponent targets a set card you control, you can banish the Noctovision, negate that card that is targeting, and for the rest of the turn, they cannot target your set cards. So this is really good. You already know that Oxila already protects your spell and traps that are already face up on the field, but it does not protect your set cards. So by having Noctovision as part of your rotation, you can play around those set cards being destroyed or popped or whatever, and then you just have protection through almost everything with your entire setup. It also makes it very awkward for your opponent if they know that you're playing this and you're playing this, because now, even though they know that you have these set, they cannot just freely go Cosmic Cyclone to get rid of these, because Noctovision protects you from that. So the other really cool thing that Noctovision does for this deck is it helps you chain block. So for example, you're summoning a Striker Dragon and you have the Noctovision, and you can chain block between those two. And then if you link someone into SP Little Knight, you can chain block with these two as well. So that's another really cool thing that you can do in this deck. Another thing that this engine does for you is that it helps you play around Dimensional Barrier. I got Dimensional Barriered 4 times, and all 4 times that I got barriered, I played through it because of this engine. So that's another thing that this engine really does for your deck. That is very helpful. Again, like I said, I do have one more card I want to talk about, uh, but I'll explain it once we get to the extra deck. So for now, it's 20 monsters in the main deck, if I'm not mistaken. Now let's go to spell cards. 3 stand-up Centurion, 3 Oath. Because we are playing the Rocket engine, we are playing triple quick launch. Uh, I guess one thing to explain that I didn't with the Rocket engine is now with the quick launch, you have 5 access to 4 cards that can access level 4 tuner in the deck. Because to this day, until Infinite Forbidden, our only tuner is Primera. Uh, so this is another thing that it solves for the deck. It also gives you another access to another tuner, so you can just go on with your Centurion plays even if your Primera is out of rotation. So going back to it, another 3 of that we're playing is 3 talents. If you notice, the only hand traps in this deck, if you want to call them hand traps, are the Bestials. We're not main decking like any other hand traps in this deck. The way I'm playing this deck is like a very combo heavy turbo deck that can just try to slice through boards, and Talents helps you with that. I'm also maining the one Feather Duster. The number one reason I'm maining Duster is because my entire side deck is already dedicated to my 15 cards, and I did not want to like move one card from the side deck to the main, or just move it out, or play a different ratio of those cards because of Duster. Uh, the way this format is like being developed, there are going to be multiple decks in this format where you have to be wary of their back row. Jubel is a really good example of that. Voiceless Voice is another example, and you will just notice that as you go along, there are just going to be matchups that are just going to be annoying for you if because of their back row. Snake Eye also applies to this, especially if they're setting stuff like cross out, imperm, etc. Um, but yeah, I don't regret playing Harpies in this deck, and you shouldn't either. Um, I'm playing Call by the Grave, self-explanatory. I am playing both Bonds and Wake Up Centurion. I'm not a fan of Wake Up Centurion, to be honest. I really don't like this card. However, because of the way my side deck is constructed, uh, I am not, I'm not gonna say forced, but there is a specific line in this deck that plays well into your side deck because of Wake Up Centurion. And I think you guys already know which card I'm talking about. If not, you'll see it when we get to the side deck. And then the other engine requirements are Branded Regained, Boost Sector Launch, really good in this deck. And the last spell card is Terraforming. So, if I'm not mistaken, I think that's 19 spells. Really high spell count. It's a good thing anti-spell is limited, otherwise, like, it would be a little bit of a problem for you. The last 2 cards you already know are the 2 Centurion trap cards. So why am I maining this card now? So the reason for maining True Awakening is that now with access to Auxila in your extra deck, you have multiple ways to get into this card consistently. And if you can make an end board that can play with this card, as well as your other layers of interruption, you almost shouldn't be losing that game. Like, Centurion is one of those decks that really thrives off the late game. So, like, just having tools in your arsenal that helps facilitate that late game is just really, really, really strong. So, you probably counted 40. The main deck is 41 with this surprise card. But again, like I'll explain it once. Explain the extra deck. So, Striker Dragon, Artemis, SP Little Knight, double Heroic Seal. Now that we're on Heroic Seal, I guess I can show this card. So the hidden, whatever youngsters call it, the goo, is Grand Tusk Dragon. So before I talk about Grand Tusk Dragon, I'll talk about Heroic Seal first. Uh, One thing that I'm aiming to do in this deck is having Heroic Seal as part of your end board. What Heroic Seal does for you is that it gives you layers of interruption that is really hard for your opponent to telegraph. One issue that Centurion have in this format, or one issue Centurions have in general, is that most of their interruptions are telegraphed, and a lot of people already are aware of what you're trying to do as their win condition. Yes, Calamity is a very, very strong card, and if it resolves, you kind of win the game. However, if people are aware of it and see how your end board is constructed, they will try to play around you summoning Calamity, and if they do that, they'll be rewarded more than not. What Heretic Seal does for you is that it gives you other layers of interruption that could just outright end their opponent's turn, but from other dimensions. And one card that helps with that is Grantus Dragon. So for those who don't know what this card is, this card came out in Power of the Elements, so the same set as Sprite and Tier Elements and Granusols. But obviously, because of Sprite and Tier Elements, nobody was going to think about this card. But essentially, what this card does is, if it's normal or special summoned, you can target two cards on the field and destroy them, and this gains 600 attack for each card destroyed. You don't care about this card gaining attack. What you care about is that you can summon this from your deck or your hand with Heroic Seal, and this becomes a pop for two cards. And if you add that to the bounce from one card from seals, that's already three. That's already three disruptions in just one card, and that's really, really powerful. This plays around a lot of different strategies. This plays around the voiceless voice setup. This plays around Tempai Dragon setup. This plays around like a lot of different decks. In case you're wondering how does this play around Tempai, what you do is whenever they have the Sengen Manor, which is the field spell, you just tribute your Heretic Seal. You bounce their Sengen Manor. They have their Tempai monsters already on the board. You special Grand Tusk, and Grand Tusk pops them. And they've already wasted their normal summon, and they already wasted one of their extenders. So they're relying on just like the Sengen spell card to make them so they can play through the rest of your board. And the other really cool thing about Grand Tusk Dragon is that it is level 8. So with Stand Up Centurion and Primera, what you can end up doing is that you can special Primera, and then with Stand Up and Primera, you just Synchro Summon, and you can either Synchro Summon into Crimson, or Auxilla, or Legatia. If you summon Legatia on your opponent's turn, by doing this, you're essentially getting one search, one draw, one bounce, and three pops by doing that. And that is a really hard setup for your opponent to play through. And that's not even counting the interruptions from both your trap cards. So this is essentially just one of the game plans of the deck now, at least the way I built it, and it really worked out. Every time I resolved this combo, I won. Like nobody played around it. So continuing to the next track, we have Ding, Typhon, Chaos Archfiend. I decided to play Berserk Road Tengi. The reason the number one reason I played Berserker is because if you get locked by Rocket Tracer's effect, you can still summon this card as a card to just push through your opponent's board. But it's also a card that you can summon on your opponent's turn with your level 4 monsters, including your Centur-ION monsters, without having to overcommit to level 12 if you don't have to. The only the thing that backfired me on this card is that it does not work with Sky Crisis. And in that sense, I do miss the ending Master Pack bit a little bit more than this. But it is interchangeable. You know, there is no right or wrong answer on what card you play. But I did face this scenario where I was on the Typhon. Uh, Dispater, Chaos Angel, um, Calamity, Crimson, and the last two yesterday are the two Centurion Synchros. I've seen people play multiples of each. Uh, in my testing, I have not found the need for you to play more than one of each. Like I've been in a position where I just summon one and one, and it's not that bad. So that's it for extra. Now for the side deck, triple shifter, triple ash blossom, triple cosmic. One card that was really good this weekend, and for me it kind of overperformed. And I've seen, and people are catching on to this card. They're noticing that this card is actually good in this format. Is Book of Eclipse. So, what essentially Book of Eclipse does, in this particular format is, you have one card for the Tempai matchup. In the off chance they try to OTK you, you just flip this card. Uh, Even though they can quick synchro, whatever monster they synchro summon just ends up being set by this card because this doesn't target. So they cannot keep extending through their board and pushing for game unless they summon like this super level 10 synchro. Against the Yubel deck, if they have the Nightmare Pain set up, you just activate this and just set their Yubel, and everything's shut down. They're forced to use the Eternity Trap in order to keep playing. So if you have this paired alongside like the Cosmic Cyclone, for example, you just pretty much break the entire Yubel board uh, without any issues. Against Voiceless Voice, this is also really strong. Just being able to set everything without targeting. You don't have to worry about like the barrier. You don't have to worry about like their monsters and in general. And yeah, uh, I think moving forward, people will catch on to this card. Even against the Snake Eye matchup, this card is really good because if they try to do IP, you just use the book, set the Flamberge, and let's say, for example, they have IP and Appaloosa, they're forced to use the Appaloosa as material for the IP. And they could still end up on an SP Little interruption, but they don't get the follow up from Flamberge. They don't no longer have the negate from Appaloosa, and they've already committed to their interruption for SP. Uh, so, yeah, I think moving forward, people will catch on to this card. I think this card is really, really good. The last card I want to talk about that I think is really good this format, and you should really highly consider. And this also, the reason I built the deck the way that I constructed it, you notice that this version of the deck of Centurion is a little bit more link heavy. The main reason for that is because of this card. So I think Dimensional Barrier is really strong in this format. This card is really good against Tempai Dragons. Like the Tempai deck cannot beat you if you flip this card. Voiceless is another deck that really struggles against this card as well. If you're facing Runic Stun and you're smart with your interactions, you can also use the barrier. Uh, to just negate their fusion monsters and then just try to pick apart their board, no longer worrying about stuff like Hugin. Uh, Ba- Branded is this deck's worst matchup, and this card also shuts down Branded, so that's another reason to play this card. Uh, if you play or sequence your plays properly, you can also play this against the Ubel deck, because one of their win conditions is the Eternity Trap card. So if they use the Eternity Trap and they just try to like resolve it on you and you flip this card, uh, it's pretty much a blowout because they're losing a lot of resources doing that. Um, but yeah, forgive to the shaky camera. Again, I am no longer on my PC setup for the time being. So, uh, for the foreseeable future, depending on how the repairs go, you will be seeing a lot of unedited content, a lot of a little bit scuffed content, or maybe no content at all for a bit. No DB adventures, sadly. But yeah, this has been Deck Report episode 3. I hope you found this informative to like your understanding. Keep practicing and keep doing.